Hi, everyone.
We are going to talk about bottling dirt. Oh, I'm just joking.
You didn't see that coming.
Fascinating.
I know.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
This is not the first time you've sat down and done a talk with me or interviewed me, so this
Except
is
never
fun.
in person. It's very exciting.
They bring me in, by the way, because I'm not an engineer. We're going to have an interesting conversation from a very different perspective of the importance of the technologies, but how it relates to the consumer and to investors, and so people can understand these technologies. And when it comes to content creation, that's exactly what our company does. And a lot of people in here might be, who the hell is this guy? Has anyone in here not seen our shows before or does not know what Property Brothers is?
Oh, I like how you just start with the busting them. You could start
Security
with the has.
out with that one right there. I see.
Keep it positive, Jonathan. Who has seen it?
It's interesting because a lot of people, so I have an identical twin brother. The two of us create television programming surrounding the home renovations, and we air in over 160 countries. We are dubbed into every language imaginable. But a lot of people only see the shows and they think, oh, it's just a couple of guys. One of them is way better looking than the other one. And they don't realize the other aspect of what we do. I've been heavily involved in sustainable energy and electrification for a long time with technologies that will improve life at home. I work a lot with the DOE and the White House in developing and deploying these technologies. We also manufacture over 12,000 products for the home. And so we do massive distribution, mostly in North America, but all over the world. And part of that, again, is bridging the gap so that people, not just homeowners, but the trades, understand what the new technologies are and what the benefits are, and that not everything is going to happen today. Some of it is us planning for infrastructure, future-proofing homes, so that in the future, when we do see a larger shift to these technologies, we have a pathway to adopt that at home. And so that's a little bit of why I'm here. And you know, you were saying earlier, was I here just as the fluff or the
Well, I was saying that I know that I'm just going to call out the elephant in the room because I know there are at least some people in here who are probably thinking we're the fluffy bunny panel.
Yes. Which we kind of, you know.
I mean,
sure.
We let's just say we threw out the Black Blazer memo. However,
yeah.
I do want to say, with all due respect to Tex-Mex, that in fact, where Jonathan sits is kind of the whole enchilada, because when we talk about the incredible innovations that are a part of the programming over the last few days, over yesterday, today, and tomorrow, you're the guy who's on the other side of what used to be called the Valley of Death until Dr. Wang wisely rebranded it to the Mountain of Opportunity. If no one buys this, if it does not get commercialized, and more importantly, and this is what I really want to ask you about, if no one evangelizes it, then it stays in the lab.
Here's a prime example. When you're walking through the showcase floor, you can tell which booth has a marketing department and which one does not. So, you know, it's very important.
Some of them are very early.
Yeah, well, exactly. And of course, we're dealing with not only the best looking room I've spoken to in a while, but also probably the most intellectual. We have a lot of engineers, a lot of you know, inventors, a lot of people who are looking for the data and the specs. What we've seen is that whole classic, you know, VHS beta, you know, story, and then none of it's relevant because it's all digital now. But the best technology is not always the one that takes hold. There needs to be a business plan. There needs to be a way to get people to understand what these technologies are. And you know, we've been fortunate. So we air, like I said, in over 160 countries and territories. And and earlier this year, my brother and I actually launched our Healthy Home Innovation Fund. So it's a prop tech fund that's basically finding people at the seed level, and they can bring their technologies to us, and we can use our brand and also the cash that we have on hand with our investors to amplify what they're working on. But part of the reason we started doing that, and part of the reason why we started talking on platforms like this, is because most people have no idea what the hell a heat pump is. And it's also the worst name for a technology that can cool your home.
It's not
so maybe there's a whole rebranding. We could workshop it right here.
Heat pumps don't have a marketing department.
Yeah, nobody understands what a fuel cell is, what all of these things, you know. But also, a lot of those technologies, the end consumer is not who we really need to get in front of that technology, because certain technologies, it's the subs, the trades, the builders that are the ones who need to understand it. So how do we reach them? Fortunately, content like ours reaches all of those folks, homeowners, skilled professionals, you name it. So we thought about then how do we create messaging that can reach all of these folks in a more engaging way? Because if you have somebody who's just talking about digital specs for an hour, everyone falls asleep. So maybe that's a great way as a sleep therapy, but not to actually convey new technologies. So you'll notice anyone who has followed us online, anyone who's seen the content that we've created, we don't take ourselves too seriously. We also really dive into the due diligence to make sure we know what technologies we're talking about, and send something out that's going to just let people become exposed to a technology that they never gave two seconds to before. The only other thing I'll say on that is I put out a documentary a few years ago that was really all about this secret battle between the existing fossil fuel utility and the new emerging renewable energy technologies. And the people who really suffer are the people in the middle who get caught up in disinformation campaigns. It's not helpful, that whole process. But at the same time, there is no solution where you can flick a switch and go completely green and carbon-free today. It doesn't exist, and it's not realistic. So what is the proper transition so you can maintain a healthy economy, make sure that you can capitalize on infrastructure that's already been implemented, and adapt not only those technologies, but also the workforce to these new technologies? It's really complicated, but the consumer doesn't need to necessarily understand all of that. They just need to be a part of the conversation. So, yeah.
So from your vantage, there are kind of two big prongs to what you're doing. There's the content creation that you've referred to, and I want to know how sustainability shows up there. And then there's the product side.
Yeah. So on the content side, the one thing we've noticed is people don't want to watch shitty content. What? That's my full message right there. I think this is all adults in here. Apologies if there's anyone.
I don't know. I mean, YouTube exists. No,
so
I'm kidding.
It's, when we started our shows, it was funny because HGTV, so we've been on the air now 14 years. HGTV before us was a lot of like darning socks and pressing flowers, and it was really kind of a different thing. We said to them, why can't it be fun? Everybody loves talking about real estate. I've tackled this weekend project. Everyone loves talking about it. Why can't it be fun? Why do we have to take ourselves so seriously? A lot of the designers were using complicated design terms. I went to school for construction and design. I don't use that jargon with my customers, with my clients when we're working. So how can we make it a fun journey? Well, it's the same when we're speaking to crowds. I spoke to 3,000 people in New York last month, and if you're just talking about the boring stuff, nobody's absorbing any of that information. But if we really have a message about a new technology or a new direction, let's make it something where you get people having fun, get them laughing a little bit, and they'll enjoy it. So that's what we've tried to do, weave in a little bit of that levity, and it has been really well accepted. Our shows continue to be among the highest rated shows in cable, except for this one person over here who, you don't have cable, right? All right, that's why. But it's also, people are consuming content in a very different way. It's not just linear television anymore. They're through their devices, they're streaming it, it's social media. So every demo that we're trying to reach has a different form of content that we need to create. So it's a big thing for anyone here who is either working on a concept for a new technology, and you have that struggle where no one knows what the heck your technology is. You don't have 10 minutes to explain it to the average consumer. You've got a couple of seconds to pique their interest, and then maybe they'll give you a little bit more time. To answer the other part of the question, the other prong, we've actually found that certain technologies, you don't really have to paint that picture because it sells itself, and it's not necessarily about how it's greener or how it's got a lower carbon footprint in its manufacturing. To be totally honest, people want to do something that's good for the environment, but they also are really swayed by when they see their friend who gets something with a really cool feature and they don't have it. So when you have induction that will boil water in 90 seconds, or when you have, in our house, we put in all heat pumps for heating and cooling our home. Every single room is zoned in our house, so everybody can have their own comfort level. Those sorts of features are the things we highlight on. So a lot of the content will be figure out the most relatable features that will have a huge impact, and that's how we'll pursue the content. And it's the same at the industrial scale, at the utility scale, large new technologies that are coming in. A lot of times it's a bottom line benefit down the road. A lot of times it's going to be something about the savings when it comes to carbon emittance. So all of these things are important, but figure out what that baseline message is and focus on that.
Right, ultimately make it aspirational and a picture of a better way to
Yeah,
live.
and I know that's why most of us do renovate our houses. It's so that we can brag to our friends that our house is awesome now, and we invite them over. So yeah.
I mean, listen, when it comes to adopting these technologies, I'm a big fan of saying you cannot put a price on smug.
No, absolutely not.
You also have a product empire, though, and I think people are familiar. People may be familiar with the shows and less familiar with the actual sort of billion-dollar business in creating and selling products that also has sustainability baked in, right?
Yeah. So and there's sustainability on the manufacturing side. There's sustainability on the product and the components of the products themselves. But it's a big picture for us. Our end goal is, does it make life better at home? Everything we do with all of our companies is, does this product or this service make life better at home? And we've acquired companies that have products that we think are incredible. We've invested in companies that I think are the future of the home, things from smart panels to leak detection to even materials that are going to make the home healthier. A lot of people don't realize that the air quality within your home oftentimes is 100 times worse than the air quality outside your home. And so, I think water quality, air quality are going to be two of the biggest areas, biggest opportunities as we move forward. And then, of course, power generation and storage is a big thing too. So we manufacture about 12,000 products. Not all of those are major products. Some of them are wallpaper and flooring and things like that are more on the decor side. But we, just for those products alone, we do about $1 billion in sales on our products alone. And we take all of those products, and we're constantly tweaking and also offering something different that can maybe open up people to a new area where they've never even contemplated in their home. What we've actually found is we have a very different relationship with our consumer base than most companies, because we have I don't even know what we have between all of our social channels, but we've got millions and millions of followers, and we have a social team that really engages on a day-to-day basis with them. So when people are watching our shows, and we film our shows year-round, we just hit our 650th episode of our shows, so there's a lot of content out there. When people send us a message on social media and they say, I love this, I saw this, or can you do an accessible home, or here's a new technology I saw, can you implement it? We actually take that data that we get directly from consumers, and we can turn around and implement that the next day. So if there's something on our shows we want to tweak, or if there's a new avenue we want to pursue, we can do that. It's the same thing with our products. A lot of the redevelopment of our products has come immediately from that direct conversation that we're having with the consumer. Companies like Nike would love to have that, direct audience relationship. Because we're a celebrity brand that has created this product offering, we have a different relationship with the audience, which is pretty unique.
What are they telling you? Are you hearing people say, yes, I want a sustainable product? Like when I go to drewandjonathan.com, I don't necessarily see sustainability front and center in the products, and yet I do know it's important to you and your brother.
Yeah.
Like, what do you know? Are people sort of like, yes, I want to pay more. Yes, I chose this because it's green.
Oh,
or is
yeah.
it that
everyone wants to pay more, right? No.
You can't put a price on smug.
No. Yeah. It's funny because I think the most effective trial for me was when I shot my documentary. I traveled all over the country, and I met with hundreds of people from every walk of life, from Virginia to the Navajo Nation to DC. That was the most challenging part. Dealing with politicians is challenging. However, everyone that I met from across the country essentially wanted the same thing. They wanted to make sure that they had a safe, healthy home. They wanted to make sure that their kids had something that was going to be good for them, healthier for them as they grow up. Everybody pretty much wanted the same thing. They wanted to save money at the end of the month. I would much rather spend money entertaining friends than shelling it out on whatever, it might be utilities or household expenses. Everybody essentially wanted the same thing. Everybody that we spoke to, most everybody we spoke to, also wanted to use products that were going to be healthier for the home, healthier for the environment. The big challenge is most of these new technologies and a lot of these green products are more expensive. And that's the barrier where a lot of people can't add anything to their monthly expenses. that what really frustrates me is there are so many products out there that are greenwashed, and they say that they're green products, they're better products, but they don't talk about the fact that they break down way faster. There are paints, certain paints that are green paints, they break down 3 times faster. So then you have to go and repaint your whole home that much faster. So looking at technologies that are actually going to have an impact, I think are so important, and not worrying so much about the stresses of how you're handling your recycling and other things. These are all, they're good things to be a part of, but it's the same way if you're trying to pay down your debt. You know, there's no sense in finding an investment that's getting you 5% return if you have all of this money sitting on a 20% credit card. So look at what's going to have the biggest impact, and that's why I love here. And ARPA-E, this is incredible because you see so many minds come together, and they're looking at world solutions, they're looking at utility scale solutions. All of these things, it has sort of the reverse effect. It will benefit people at home because it's going to have a greater impact around the globe. So
talk a little bit about the documentary for people who are not familiar, and just why you care about this. And because the documentary, I encourage you all to watch, Power Trip. It's pretty revolutionary. You're a little pissed.
It's challenging because it's called Jonathan Scott's Power Trip, and what happened with me was I was putting solar on my home in Vegas. And I don't know who has solar. Has anybody here put solar into their home or looked into solar or storage? So depending on where you live in the country, it can be easier or harder to implement solar. And one of the challenges we had is, the actual process of getting it on my roof was pretty easy, but then there was I didn't know, but there was a real battle with the utility in Nevada, and just to flick the switch, essentially, flick the disconnect to turn it on, took me 5 months, and I struggled, and I went back and forth, and finally they turned it on, and about 2 weeks later, all solar was killed in Nevada. They changed the law, and they pretty much put all the solar companies out of business. And I was like, what the hell happened here? I thought I was doing something that was good for the planet, and it was going to be good for our bills. And that's sort of the battle that sent me on this journey where I hired a researcher, brought them on board. We looked around, and Nevada was not the worst off. There were in fact, the sunniest places in the country were the hardest places to get solar, which seems kind of funny. And it was because you had this secret war that was going on. And on the utility side, there are very legitimate things that the utilities need to worry about in the transition to clean energy. On the consumer side, there are very legitimate things that consumers should be angry about. I wanted to get to the bottom of it. I have no ulterior motive, and it's the same in our product line, it's the same in the content we create or when we're speaking. I have no ulterior motive other than we want to figure out something that makes life better at home. And so that's why when I toured around, it didn't matter if it was a rural region or a big city. It didn't matter if it was a conservative household owner or if it was someone who was on the liberal side. It didn't matter. Everybody essentially wanted to be in control of how they power their own home. They wanted to make sure that they could do things that were going to make life better, healthier, save them money. And so really the biggest challenge for us has been, how can we get the cost of these technologies so that it's approachable and affordable for everybody? And that's where a lot of the programs that have now been implemented, IRA and whatnot, there's essentially money sitting there for anybody who wants it if they're going to do these upgrades. Yeah. And then the ancillary benefits are all the cool things that the new technologies offer. Solar is not the only solution out there. There are other solutions that are great. In 20 years, we may have other advancements in other technologies. So I know there's a lot of fear-mongering that goes on, which is kind of necessary but also unhelpful at the same time. This is a point in time where there are also really exciting technologies that have emerged, really exciting new ideas that are being tested. And when they have the funding, these really smart people can really do wonderful things with these technologies. So a summit like this is incredible because you need that. If we weren't looking ahead at what the future is, we would still be doing horse and buggies, and we would still be doing, all of the things, that our ancestors had done. And so I love technology. I love, creative thinking. But as we said at the beginning of this, it's one thing to have a really incredible, revolutionary idea. It's another to market it in a way where it's actually going to have some success. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we really need events like this to pull together the ingenuity of our inventors, the financing that it's going to take to implement this stuff, and then the messaging. How do we mold that and get it out so people understand what it is?
So I want to talk a little bit about adoption and cost, because you have put a lot of emphasis on families and making these technologies affordable. And also, I am guessing you hang out with a number of rich people who
I hate them.
we really need to adopt these technologies actually, right? So when you look at who emits the most and whose footprints are the biggest, and you redid your house. What is your role as an influencer for the people who can afford to adopt these technologies when they are the newest and most expensive, and thereby drive down the cost for all of us?
So when you're talking about those fancy people, that's my brother you're talking about, right? The funny thing, by the way, we've been on there for 14 years.
This, or?
People will still walk up to us and say, "Oh my gosh, are you Drew or Scott?" I'm like, "I'm Jonathan. I'm the lesser known one, I guess." But no, so I strongly disagree with vilifying people because they have not adopted a new technology. I strongly disagree with that. We would not be where we are today if it wasn't for the Industrial Revolution. We would not be where we are today if it was not for fossil fuel, if it was not for a lot of what created the bedrock of where we are in our economies, and this is globally. To say to somebody, "I can't believe you're driving a fossil fuel vehicle, that's ridiculous," I'm like, that doesn't help anything, because all that does is it then takes somebody who maybe either financially is not ready to adopt an EV, or maybe lives in an area where there isn't infrastructure for an EV.
Oh, I want to be super clear. I'm not trying to vilify people. What I'm saying is, like, there's an opportunity to demonstrate the benefits of your super fast, quiet, awesome, like.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. But this is actually something I forgot to bring up earlier, and I was going to mention how it's all about creating a dialogue so people can understand what's out there. And it's the same in the social content that we create. And so I've seen it a lot of time where people get really defensive if somebody is doing something that they feel is not eco-friendly, or why did you choose that product? I'm like, we're getting to a place where we know when it comes to the home, we know the home is going to electrify. Every study, everything, all the data shows an electrified home is more efficient, easier to operate, and the way all of our appliances communicate with each other is going to be extremely helpful. It'll prevent grid blackouts. There's a lot of benefit to it. So we know it's going to move in that direction. There's resistance, yes, and depending on the community and the affluence of that community, some will be slower, than others. You look around the country, 40% of communities are already electrified. 40% of communities never had gas run to them in the first place. So, how do we manage all of this? It's shifting in that direction. You have to make sure you do it in a way that you're not getting someone's defenses up and attacking them with your new ideas, but I think it's great to showcase it. And so that's what I love, is I love that we have a platform where I can test out these technologies. And I have used some new technologies, some sustainable technologies that I frankly don't think are going to be a solution at all. Yeah. It's cool, it's interesting, but I don't see it actually helping on the big scale. When we renovated our home in Los Angeles, it was a 100-year-old home, or 90-year-old home, and we put everything into it I could to, not only electrify, but also we recycle up to 250 gallons of our gray water every day, use that for all the irrigation. We produce all our own power. We have heat pumps throughout. It's really a cool house. We even, on the insulation side, did a new product where we did a 2-inch dense board foam shell around the entire house. Not only does it create a more efficient home, but we live in a fire canyon. And so the home is essentially completely fireproof now, which is also important for us. The payback on many of these things that we did, like the gray water system, like something, is not effective. And so most people would not be ready. But the good thing is, much like the solar cost and the decline as more adoption happened, we'll see these technologies become more prevalent. We'll see the cost come down to the point where it is accessible for everybody. So I'm fine, we are fortunate enough that we have the resources to be able to put a little bit more into these technologies. So I'm happy to be the guinea pig. But if I ever come across something that does not do what it says it's going to do, I'm also the first person to stand up and say that did not work. And that's not something I think is a viable solution.
Right, but it does feel like that influencing is important, at least saying you were able to do it, because it also is not easy, right? It takes a lot of time and energy and
the influencing side of it is
permits.
So interesting, because you take a look. I think one of the biggest problems we have right now is policy. There are so many problems with policy that, planning takes forever, permitting takes forever in a lot of regions. Fortunately here, and I've worked and built homes in almost every state. I've been all over the country.
Tell us about the geographical. You're like in the most unique position
Oh my
to
gosh.
really understand the different
California,
geographies.
this is the challenge. California is very anti-business, and it is also, there are so many layers of complexities when it comes to the type of permitting that you have to have. So a lot of the things when you look at solar or when you look at heat pumps, a lot of these things, there are ways that we could implement a much more streamlined process, even using AI and using online platforms. And I know the Department of Energy was actually working on an app too to streamline some of that. But it's not just about the renewable energies. In general, permitting, like who here has done a renovation? And who here wanted to pull their hair out during the process? Yeah, that guy's bald, so I can see he pulled all his hair out. It's not set up to make an enjoyable experience for consumers, and this is the largest investment most people will ever make. So I am advocating for some things that are not even in the renewable energy side. Some of it is just, again, to make the process easier so that it's easier for contractors, it's easier for homeowners. And I think the greatest way we can do that is for people to be vocal with their local government and say, hey, look, there's got to be a better way. There are organizations that are pursuing this. I know when the Department of Energy rolled out this one test app that was going to be really easy for streamlining some of the stuff in solar. It means when some of these technologies are rolled out, get behind it, grab it, test it, see is it something that's going to work for you. And when you're looking at those new technologies, if you think about it, if somebody just runs up to me on the street and says, hey, here's something, you got to look at this, I'm usually like, I'm a second-degree black belt in karate. Don't surprise me, all right? I'm just going to take it out. And whereas if a friend comes to you and says, I saw this thing that was really cool. I listened to this podcast, and what do you think? You're much more open to what somebody is going to say. Mm-hmm. So the greatest circle of influence you have are those people who are directly around you at your work, at your home. If there's something that you think you see here at the summit that you think is a really cool technology, talk about it. Separate and aside from energy and all of this, I watched a video on a test they're doing in Denver at the airport, and there's a new technology where when you scan your boarding pass, the camera, the AI, takes a look at what you're wearing, who you are, and everything, and the airport monitors you as you walk through the airport, and every single big sign will say, hey, Molly, your flight's gate 3, arrow's pointing this way. Nobody else can see those words, only you, because the system's designed to know where you're standing and only you can see what it says on the screen, even if someone's right next to you. Technologies like this are going to make life easier. If you picture yourself at a foreign airport where you're a little confused. At home, what can your home do to make life easier? Companies came out years and years ago. We used to showcase a lot of stuff at CES as well, another summit for technology.
That's where I saw that airport technology you're talking about.
Yeah, and there are technologies where when you walk up to the front door, in fact, it was so strange, it was Technicolor that came up with this technology, which you wouldn't assume for home technology. But anyway, it scans you, it knows who you are, and it immediately turns all of your lights to where you want them, your music on, can start boiling water for the kettle. That's how smart homes could be. Today, when people talk smart home, they're usually talking about, I was able to spy on my neighbor with this camera, or I played my music and Justin Bieber was cranked, in the backyard. That's not what I think. That can be cool technology in a very dumb home. Smart home.
We're doing Taylor now.
Yeah, we've moved on from Justin Bieber to Taylor Swift. A smart home is it a home that's running efficiently so that your maintenance costs are going to be lower? The air is healthier. The water, you're not having. I think water is going to become very, very expensive, especially in places like California, where I am. So how can we make sure we don't have that loss and leaks in the line? So that's what smart home technology is. I've seen so many cool companies out here, from geothermal to insulating companies, solar. There are so many technologies now that will get there, but have that dialogue and think in advance about what the proper path is to market the product. And even before you talk about that, you can kind of play this game where you reverse engineer everything down. What is the one message that is your through line that will get through to the consumer or to the trade that's going to actually deploy your product? What is that one message? And that should be the thing you're hyper-focused on.
Yeah, and now you're talking about a funder. You mentioned earlier setting up a fund. What are some of the things you're excited about and looking for for, and the company you would like to see appear that you can.
Oh my gosh, there are so many. So again, ours has a pretty broad bucket. It's essentially what's going to make life easier at home, the Healthy Home Fund. And so, some of these are products and technologies. So, it could be everything from a carbon capture material to, an energy, something that's, well, one of the products that we're looking at right now is a leak detection system, and it's AI driven and ultrasonic, so it can hear the frequency of a pinhole leak inside the wall on some run in your house, but it can tell you where that leak is. It can tell you somebody left this sink on. Our 7-year-old does that all the time, and the water will just run until we find it. Now we have leak detection that will tell us which sink it is. So things like that. Services as well. Is there something where we can make the home buying or the home renovation process easier? The biggest problem spaces in a house when renovating are the kitchen and the bathroom. There's so many things that can go wrong. There are a lot of software solutions that can provide that, streamline the process so that it's easier for the trades and for the homeowner. So all of these things are a focus for us. Some ideas come in, I think they're brilliant, but I just think they're too niche, that they're not going to have broad appeal. And there are other things that come in, and there might be massive utility scale use for it right now, but it hasn't quite made it to where it's going to be at home. And so, yeah.
And then what about, there are sort of two mythologies. I mean, one is really true. Overconsumption is a problem. Mm-hmm. And then there's a myth that anything that isn't overconsumption is pure sacrifice. There's a lot of daylight in there. And so I wonder how you are also thinking, especially with the person with a huge store, about reuse and recycling and even just reduction.
Oh yeah, because it goes right back to the old analogy when my parents were like, a penny saved is a penny earned. It's true. We're in a very strange point in time where everything is disposable. People are buying new devices, and I even laugh because Apple tries to sell you a brand new phone every single year, and I was like, what the hell happened to it? When I get a phone, I can keep it for 4 years, but it's totally, out of date by the time the next one rolls out. With our products, we try and create products that are going to last a move. You may have purchased some furniture from a random Swedish furniture store at some point, and you try one move and the thing falls apart completely. That serves a niche area of the market where people are looking for a price point and they're looking for something, and great. We try and build stuff that we know when the kids jump up on the sofa, the leg's not going to break. And we try and build stuff as well. We're one of the largest recyclers of plastic water bottles in the country. So our rugs, our Drew and Jonathan rugs, we recycle 80 million of these a year for our area rugs, and we basically spin them into fibers, and they feel like regular carpet, but they're actually made out of recycled plastic water bottles. So anything we can do to create, a sustainability story, but also a resilient story, that's important. I have the big argument because in our renovations, so my fiance, she loves wool rugs, and she wanted these wool rugs, and I was like, but you spill one glass of wine, and we do a lot of entertaining. I'm like, that rug's done. And I'm like, I can manufacture something that looks exactly the same, but it's not that. And she said, no, we got to do it. And so we put these rugs in, and sure enough, the kids destroyed these two of these rugs right away, and I swapped them out. I like having beautiful products that are going to stand up to what life throws at it. I don't like tiptoeing around. So I think it's the same. I think, why not build things that are a little more resilient? I have never had a problem, and I've done, for our shows, 650 renovations. Before that, I have done probably another 600 renovations before doing our shows. I have never had a client who has ever said, I'm not willing to spend a little bit more if I know I'm not going to have a problem. Mm-hmm. Bathrooms, like I said, is usually where we find our mold issues. In a bathroom, if you put in a membrane system under your tile, it prevents cracking, it prevents water leakage, prevents mold. I've never had anyone say, if you can spend $1,000 more on your $15,000 bathroom, would you be willing to spend that to know you'll never have a problem? And they always agree. So I think it's trying to change the mindset that it's not the lowest cost solution, it's the best value solution. And the best value solution is not having to change things out.
And then finally, don't you think it's time for a sustainability makeover show? I'll host it if you're too busy.
Yes, I have. We have talked about a purely sustainable makeover show for the longest time. In fact, the very pitch before Property Brothers, the very first pitch we ever made was an eco makeover show. And It's a challenge because earnest programming doesn't usually do well.
Yeah.
People like a little drama. They want their Real Housewives kind of thing. Drew brings the drama to our situation. But so we try and create compelling content and weave those stories in for sustainability or for new technologies. And it's great. I get inspired by how many amazing ideas, cool ideas, and people who even just message us on social media and say, hey, I created this product, what do you think? I actually do see a lot of that stuff, and my team captures it and sends it through to us. So this, for me, is like my candy store. I've been walking around here, walking the floor, meeting people, and it's just been absolutely incredible. So all I can say moving away from here is keep up the hard work, have those conversations. Don't worry, we're going to see a lot of these technologies get adopted. It'll take time, but just have the conversation out there and think about how you're going to market your product. To somebody like, I always say for me, dumb it down for me. Dumb it down.
Yeah.
How are you going to sell it to me in a couple of seconds?
Jonathan, thanks
Thank
so
you
much.
so much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for the time.
It's a pleasure.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much. All right. Bye.